Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to the Criterion Collection review series, where we're going through every movie in my personal Criterion collection and I'm giving my thoughts and opinions on them. It's also serving as a way for me to rewatch all of them, since it's been a long time since I've actually done that. And today is a film that is actually I watched fairly recently in the past couple of years, but I was really excited to revisit it just so I could get a fresh new perspective on it. And that would be Paul Schrader's 1985 hidden gem, Mishima, A Life in 4 Chapters. Now, I will be honest, one of the things that initially drew me to the film is this cover, which is absolutely spectacular. In fact, I'm afraid it's like a golden sheen to it. I'm afraid the light in the room is gonna really mess with how it looks. But it's a gorgeous, enticing cover. But then when I found out it was written by Paul Schrader, who most famously is the writer for Taxi Driver and the director of American Gigolo and most recently First Reformed, I knew I had to watch this film once I knew he made those. Once I knew he was the director, I knew I had to jump on this. It's a very fascinating and very different movie, which I think is its strongest suit, is its unique take on a biography. Now, who is it telling the story of? Well, it's telling the story of Yukio Mishima, I hope I said his name right, who was a fairly prolific and well-respected and admired writer in Japan in the 50s and 60s. He's also known for being very eccentric and very odd. He was a man who, at the time, was a closeted homosexual, or maybe he was open. I believe he was closeted. He was a man who wrote so many shorts and books and plays that were about so many different topics and were really controversial and thought-provoking. He became an actor, a director. He kind of did it all. And then he believed so much in his political beliefs of ending capitalism in Japan and returning the country to an imperial rule, that he started his own private army, which eventually led to him in 1970 this private army invading a Japanese army base as he tries to incite a revolution, until he eventually committed seppuku in the privacy of one of the rooms, so ultimately died on that day. If the film was just telling that story, it would be fascinating, and Paul Schrader would definitely be the man to do it, as it is a story about obsession and perfection. But what Schrader does that I think elevates Mishima into such a powerful and impactful movie is the way it's structured, where you have sort of three different storylines or three different types of film. 1/3 of the film takes place on the day Mishima committed suicide, following him from the moment he wakes up all the way to when he does actually kill himself, going into detail about what led him to that decision and kind of the events of the day. And then we have another third of the film, which is just his life, from birth or childhood all the way up to that modern day. These sections are in black and white and are very minimalist. They're very traditional Japanese film, a lot of comparisons to Ozu and maybe even Kurosawa. And these sections sort of give you a lot of context and sort of the history of how he got to where he is and how he developed his insights and views on the world. But then the last third is that every section of the film, which there are 4 chapters, so to speak, is sort of gives a almost like Cliff Notes version of one of Mishima's novels, and relating them back to what's going on in the past and giving a further explanation as to why he thinks the way he does and his own personal beliefs on art and politics and life. And these sections are incredible. First of all, it's incredible production design. Every set is massive and gorgeous and full of so much color and light. They feel unreal. It's simply fascinating. And there is the first story, which I forget the complete name, but it's about it's called like the Golden Pavilion. And the entire set is almost like a lake, like a lake with like a bridge around it, and some forest area, and in the center is the Golden Pavilion, which is always in eyesight of the characters, reflecting the conflict in the story, where the main character is someone with a stutter who feels overwhelmed by the beauty of the Golden Pavilion to the point where he sort of is obsessed by it and decides he needs to burn it to the ground in order to be free of it. There is one that is about this actor who strives for perfection, to have like a perfect body, until he gets into a relationship with a woman that becomes sadomasochistic and it gets very violent. And every set seems like one section of a play, like one section of a theater set. And the last story, which is probably the closest to Mishima's own life, is a story about a sort of a group of kendo athletes who form a secret group trying to bring a imperialistic uprising to Japan to destroy capitalism. Where at the end of the story, the cell is broken up by the police. The main character runs out. He manages to escape, kills a businessman, and then commits seppuku in front of the morning sun. And so, of course, that one's closest to Mishima's life. And this one, again, has gorgeous, gorgeous sets. What works so well about this structure is how it's all weaved together. Of course, the editing is incredible to be able to weave all these stories and help you keep up with everything that's going on. But what it does so well is a lot of the time they're sort of in conversation with each other, or sort of explaining each aspect of Mishima's life, where, you know, you're watching the Golden Pavilion and you're seeing these characters saying odd things and doing odd things that like make more sense once you tie it into Mishima's life, where, you know, for him beauty is this impossible goal that he's always aiming for, that he's always striving to achieve. And it's just, and so you sort of understand why he would write a story about a character that's so almost driven mad by the overwhelming beauty of something. But the other genius thing about incorporating these three stories into the narrative of Mishima and his life is the fact that Mishima, he was so dedicated to his own personal art and beliefs, where he was someone that not only wanted to explore ideas through his art, but he wanted to live those ideas. He wanted to be an example, to really execute the concepts and ideas and beliefs that he put down on paper. You know, he really was a man of action. You know, he writes about a character who's an actor that strives for a perfect body because he views the human body as a work of art, to the point where he believes that people should just commit suicide at the age of 40 to preserve that art. Mishima in his real life went from sort of a scrawny young man to becoming a bodybuilder, to really, you know, treating his body like a temple, like a work of art, to the point where he can recreate a piece of art that was very special to him when he was younger, which you'll see in the film. And so I think what works so well about including those sections is it really, again, it's putting to action Mishima's ideas, right? It's reflecting how integral his art was to his life by showing you every aspect of his life. Not only, you know, him growing up, not only the day that he died, but most importantly, the art that he used to express these ideas and work through them, by showing them and how they are directly connected and linked to his life. It's a startling and extremely vivid portrayal of this person. Of course, how accurate it is and how, you know, how respectful it is to the real Yukio Mishima is to be determined. I know that his wife was not a fan of the homosexual sections and of portraying his suicide. But of course, you know, who knows what bias is there. But even on that level, I think that Schrader just does an incredible job at capturing this fascinating person and this fascinating idea and like just this dedication. Schrader does an incredible job at telling stories about passionate, dedicated, obsessive people that always take things to an extreme, but allowing you to understand where they're coming from. So when they take these extreme turns, you may not agree with it, but you understand where they're coming from. I can't really comment on the effect that capitalism has had on Japan and if they should return to an imperialist system, but I do understand why Mishima feels that way, and whether or not I agree with him, I have some understanding, some empathy for that. So that when he says, you know, I need to kill myself in order to prove a point, I get it. I feel it, you know, I see it. And it's just a fascinating portrayal that is beautifully shot. While, of course, I've talked about the fictional sections, which are played out almost like extravagant plays, you also have the flashbacks, which are black and white and are very structured and static, but have gorgeous cinematography, very reflective of old Japanese cinema. And the modern day sections feel more like a modern thriller, but they're all incredibly well shot. The performances are great, especially from, I gotta make sure I get his name right, from Ken Ogata, I hope I say his name correctly, who plays Mishima, who does a simply fantastic job of at once, you know, portraying all the emotions Mishima had, the hurt, the anger, the passion, but he also is able to be very charming, very likable. There are many moments where he's just clearly, you know, the most confident guy in the room, and you just, you know, it almost feels like he has everything planned out, you know, in the sense that he's planned out his entire life, he's writing it down in the same way that he plans out his fictional stories. He knows where his life is going, and he's going to do whatever he can to get there. I'm not sure what else to say. It's just an incredible, powerful, passionate film. Well, the other really great thing to mention about it is that Schrader wrote the screenplay with his brother, and then had his brother-in-law, and then his brother's wife, who is Japanese, translate the script and help them write it so it could be more appropriate for a Japanese reader, because the film is shot in Japan with Japanese actors. And I think that's the closest you can get to being respectful to the source material, to the culture, is to, you know, really incorporate those people. And, you know, we can debate if Schrader was the right person to tell the story or not, and in fact, that was a sense of, that was a point of controversy for the film when it was being released, and according to the booklet, Mishima still has not had an official release in Japan because of it. But I think Schrader did everything in his power to, you know, be able to tell the story and bring it to the screen as respectfully and with as much honor as possible. And I think that really shines through. It's very clear that Schrader cares about Mishima and really admires him and really put his heart and soul into bringing his story to the screen. And, you know, the fact this movie exists is a miracle, and the fact that we can have it in this beautiful edition is even more powerful. But speaking of which, this Criterion edition is pretty well packed with special features. First of all, so we have an audio commentary from Schrader, which is really great. One thing they do that I like is they have two different narrations for the film, including the one that came with the original theatrical release in America, where Roy Schrader is the narrator, since I guess the studio thought that audiences didn't want to read. I don't know. But then we also have interviews with the producers of the film, along with the writer, and along with the production designer and the composer, who's Philip Glass. I should mention the score is incredible because it's by Philip Glass. Duh, you know? And then we have interviews with a biographer of Mishima, John Nathan, and also, once again, Donald Ritchie. I think anytime we get to a Japanese film, he's going to be involved. But they give really great insights on like Mishima's personal life, which further sort of informs the film and the choices they made in terms of presenting him. And then we also get an interview with Paul Schrader's sister-in-law, who had to sort of translate the story and get her perspective on what that took to translate the script. We also get a documentary about the author, a trailer, you know, things like that. Again, jam-packed. If you want to know more about Mishima and his life and the film's production, this is the place to go, you know. And then you also get this gorgeous booklet. So we have here, and of course it comes with The analytical essay, which is written by Kevin Jackson, does a good job of going in depth about the film and its influences and where it's at. And then you have this little piece about the film being banned in Japan. And then last but not least, which might be the one of the best aspects of this, is you get this series of pictures from the sets. You can see the production design. These gorgeous high quality pictures of each of the sets. So here's the Golden Pavilion. Here's one of the sets from the second story. You see the gorgeous lighting there. You know, just a really great reference guide almost. But overall, Mishima, A Life in 4 Chapters is a beautiful and incredible film. That is a biography made with a lot of love and a lot of passion, equal to that of the person that it's about, that tries to explore this man in every aspect of his life, not only in the life he lived, but in the art he made, and showing how intertwined all of this was to form him, the enigmatic celebrity that was Yukio Mishima. And this Criterion release is also fantastic. That is completely worth owning and watching, and highly recommended for myself. But thank you all so much for watching. If you like this video, please like it. If you want other people to see it, please share it with them. What do you think about this film? What do you think about Paul Schrader? What do you think about Mishima? Let me know down in the comments below. And also, if you want to see more videos like this, please subscribe. Where next time we're going to be talking about the Steve McQueen, talking about his first feature film, which is Hunger. But either way, thank you all so much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.